Better shake your booties for black girl nerds. Better shake your booties for black girl nerds.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Black Girl Nerds podcast recap show of The Last of Us. I'm so excited to be doing this show tonight. We have folks from Black Girl Nerds and we got special guests on, and this is our first time actually doing this recap, even though we're in episode 2 of The Last of Us. But you know, I'm a little late to the game and I got blown away when I finally saw The Last of Us, and I was like, I have to create content around this show. It is so amazing. It's like Game of Thrones for us. You know, Game of Thrones is our jam. We always do recaps around that. And it is kind of like Game of Thrones in the sense that not only is it on the same home as HBO, but it premiered, I think, second to House of the Dragon. It has some of the most views on that network. So we're going to talk about The Last of Us tonight's episode, and thank you guys for tuning in. And before we get started, just want to do a quick intro of our guests on tonight's panel. My name is Jamie Broadnax. I'm the founder and creator of Black Girl Nerds. And then we've got Ryan here. Ryan, go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll go to Giandra and then Josh.
Oh, well, hello, you guys. We're back again for some more recaps here, usually doing some co-hosting for the podcast of Black Girl Nerds. But yeah, this is going to be fun. I'm excited to jump into the recap.
Oh, and I guess I am next. I am Giandra LaBeouf. I am also a contributor to Black Girl Nerds and red carpet host, and not a gamer, but I love this show.
Boom. And I am Josh Evans. I'm trying to remember what you said, Jamie. Founder and creator of High Form Family. Not a part of Black Girl Nerds officially, but you know, it's all family. So that's why we're here.
Yes, and I apologize, you guys. I have the display on cutting off your names at the bottom, so sorry about that. Let me, I don't know why that's, you know, technology, but we can.
It's growing over it.
But I hope you guys can appreciate, you know, the little. We've got the little.
I see your frame game. Your frame game is tight right now. I peep that.
I'm trying. Let me just take this off really quick, just so people can see. Giandra and Josh, and this is their socials. Here's our socials, and just that way you guys can follow them. Please follow them on all of the socials after tonight's stream. And then, let's just dive right into it. So episode 2 of The Last of Us was so intense. We won't talk about episode 1 because it'll be a very long stream, but obviously you guys know episode 1 was definitely all of the things. But we open up in Jakarta, Indonesia in 2013. This is a little bit of a deviation from the game for you gamers out there. I will say I have not played the game, but I know enough about the game because I've watched 10 hours of gameplay. So I know what happens in the game. So I can speak to you guys that have played it. Josh has also played the game, if I'm not
A
mistaken.
little bit.
Little bit.
I can tell you the exact point which I got stuck later on when we start.
Okay, all right. So we are gonna have some game speak on this recap, and we'll talk about that as well as obviously get into the show. But this is a conversation for everybody, so you don't have to be a gamer to engage in this discussion. And by the way, we are streaming. Before I even jump into the recap, I forgot to do sort of the admin stuff. Follow us on twitch.tv. We're on Twitch. Follow us on and subscribe YouTube. We're currently live streaming on Facebook. And if you do want to comment, please comment. Give us feedback, give us commentary, let us know what you thought about tonight's episode, and we'll see what you have to say, and we're happy to have that discussion and engage with you here live on the recap show. All right, so getting right into it. We're in Jakarta, Indonesia, a little bit of deviation from the game. The Indonesian military interrupts Ibu Ratna, I think her name is, but she is a doctor. She's, sitting, having a meal at the restaurant. And then, they just interrupt her in the middle of her meal. And then we find out she's the professor of mycology at the University of Indonesia. And she's a very valuable asset to the government. She's brought into a local lab and she's asked to examine some specimen. And she recognizes that there are cordyceps that are found. But she's like, they can't survive in humans. So I don't know what's going on here. What's happening with what I'm examining here. And she's brought into a room with a woman's corpse on the table. And we see that the woman, has been bit. And she examines the body and discovers these weird fungi-like tendrils that are coming out. And then she just runs the hell out of Dodge, which is exactly what I would have done. When the military official, she has a sit down with the military official, and he asks her about a cure or a vaccine. And the doctor, she says, there is no cure. There is no vaccine that can be made. And she's just like, bomb the city, bomb the hell out of it, kill us all.
Just hit them with some pimp lines, bomb all of it.
Bomb it. And then we cut to the main titles. So I want to stop there and kind of get you guys' feedback on that opening scene that we saw. And what did you think about that whole exchange?
Beginning with me?
Oh, yeah. Anybody can jump in, but Giandra, starting with you, go right on in.
Yeah.
But looking at that, it's super duper, it's super frightening, just the idea of that, given that the current climate that we're currently living in and vaccines and stuff, and trying to juxtapose what we know on our side and what these people are feeling. And just the fear of someone who is highly evolved, who's devoted their life to study this, saying the only solution is to just, it's a wrap. Bomb it all. And then having somewhat of some peace with it, that just send me home, which means
Right.
you have to be bombed too, because you're within the perimeters of the city. That is a different level of fear when you start to sit in that calm and realize just the doom is there and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. Josh, what about you?
I thought it was gangster because the guy was like super earnest, like, what can we do? She's like, bomb, my guy, bomb, level everything. Also send me home before you guys make that call. I was like, that's super intense. But I also thought it was like a nice callback to the first episode, with like the cold open of the first episode where the dude was explaining like fungi. I was like, yeah, basically global warming. And if the fungi ever evolve, it's over,
right,
for everybody. And so, and we've seen obviously bits of that even with COVID and like the variants. Like, yeah, we beat COVID. Oh snap! Here are the cousins. And like, that whole idea of like, it's constantly. I don't know. I feel like these are more of my COVID thoughts. I feel like from like the 90s till now, it was kind of like, oh, human beings, we always win. We always come out on top. But if you look at history, there's always something sweeping through, knocking out humans, and then it like spurs the advent of like more technology and medicine.
Mhm.
And so that whole scene, I was like, oh yeah, this is like a historical precedent set here. But she said it completely gangster. I was like, wow, she's not even trying. Like it's like you have a PhD in this, and you're just like, yeah, this is it. I have no speculation.
She's like the Donald Sutherland character in Outbreak, just like kill
Right.
them all.
Yeah. Wipe them out. That's the only option here.
Yeah. How about you, Rhyme?
Yeah, this carried over for me from like the first episode of just that loss of hope. Like when she says just bomb everything. And it's just, man, it's just that's that scary feeling. That's the scary part to me when everybody loses hope. And there's nothing else you could do. And they're just like, okay, we're done. Bomb everything. We don't know how to stop this. It's coming out of the woodworks. We don't know what started it. And anytime you bullet those tendrils, I'm like, oh, that was for me the whole episode. That stuff is so just nasty. Yeah. I'm like, God, I would have took off running just like she did. I was like, oh
yeah. That was the blackest thing ever. Running out.
Because the soldier's like,
I'm done.
Sick. Yeah. Run out. She's like, I'm not waiting until that time. You see it?
I would have ran exactly. And also, and I had live tweeted a little bit before our show, and I pointed this out that it really looked a lot like Wuhan, China. In that moment with the, when they had on the suit and everything inside, I was just like, this is so close to what we experienced during 2020 and COVID. So it's kind of scary. It's like, this is a fictional show, but like this really happened.
Yeah.
The fiction is based on some kind of reality. So they definitely hit the mark here.
True. Yeah,
and the cordyceps are a real thing. It is a real fungi that grows, and it's found in ants, and they are in fact infected and have these zombie-like, I think, qualities that it affects their mind, and they're not really themselves. So there's a whole thing with cordyceps where it's a real thing. It just hasn't affected humans the way it affects insects.
Yes.
Scary.
I'm not gonna lie. The cold open from the first episode terrified me. I was like, oh, this isn't just like creative writing. This is somebody's thesis that y'all just put in the show real quick. I'm like, this is horrifying. Why are we not talking about this?
Right, because I think I had read somewhere that Neil Druckmann had saw like some sort of like National Geographic show or some sort of nature show, and Neil Druckmann, the creative director for The Last of Us, and kind of that's how he built the concept of this show, which is what I want to ask you, Giandra, because you interviewed him for Black Girl Nerds. Did he talk about that at all? Like, coming up with the idea for this show and how he conceptualized it?
When in the early stages of it, they talked a lot about trying to find what that fine line was with satisfying the gamers and then adapting it to appeal to a broader audience. He touched upon it a little bit, but the indication to me was they spent a lot of time just trying to marry it to gamers after seeing where so many other series had failed and disappointed gamers in their adaptations. But as I'm listening to you say that, all I can think about is like cockroaches. You know how they say roaches never die and they can adapt to anything? I bet that's what have that, and that's gross. And they fly now and stuff. The roaches never used to fly in California, but now they do. So now I'm just
evolving. They're getting bigger.
I'm gonna start walking around with the bubble around me like the professor at all times right now.
The hazmat suit, yeah. We're just gonna be walking around with those from now on.
For sure.
So in the following scene, Ellie wakes up to see Joel and Tess, with Joel pointing a gun at her, and Joel demands that he sees her arm. He's a little paranoid, like, okay, what's going on? She looks like she's infected. And we also discover that Marlene has been testing Ellie while she was in possession of the fireflies. So that's something that we learned through Ellie's conversation with Joel and Tess. And keep in mind, during this time, Joel is very cold and distant towards Ellie. So I like how we're seeing this relationship at the very beginning in comparison to how we're going to see it evolve over time. But very detached, very, very distant. And he's reluctant to smuggle her as cargo at this point. Ellie is forced into a confession to Tess that there is a medical facility at the Fireflies base camp because they're trying to create a vaccine and cure. So Joel, Ellie, and Tess are off to their respective mission. And during their conversation, there's one notable takeaway, and that's the mention of spores. So quick aside from that, Ellie says that she heard that it's a thing. Joel brushes it off as it's a tale that, just some people mention it. It's just a thing that people say. And Tess says she simply hopes it's not true. And for those who are familiar with the game, spores is an actual threat that could cause infection. But in the TV adaptation, spores are not going to be a threat on the show. So want to stop there and get your guys' thoughts on that conversation between Tess, Joel, and Ellie.
Something that was interesting to me in the shaping of this scene, when they shot it, I went back and watched again because I've seen this episode already, and it's how they're lighting them and how they're showing you who is going where. Every time they put the camera on Ellie, she's very bright and she's very illuminated, and they have them in the shadows as they talk to her. And from every perspective, it's kind of almost like a silhouette of them and her bright and in the shadows, like she is the chosen one. So even if you're not a game player and know what she's going to go on to do or what happens in the game, it's clear this is the anointed one. She is going to make it. And they are just unsure. At this point, they still have Joel in the shadows too. You don't know. But for all that back and forth and attitude and everything, she is the light that is here to save them all if they can get out of this hotel. That hotel was scary. Knowing about the spores and the disease, I would have never walked through the water. That would have been the end of it for me right there.
Yeah. Josh, what about you?
I thought it was good. I mean, from the writing standpoint, I would understand why they took the spores out. It's like, we've already got a massive story here, including an airborne version of this global disease. That's too much. No one's going to approve that budget.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like it was a budget thing as to why they got rid of the spores.
Yeah, I mean, that's like another 4 episodes. And then you have to figure, okay, do we have technology that's against it? Like, that's too much, and that's like another $100 million. Like, if James Cameron was directing this, then yes, they would have.
Good point.
Otherwise, but other than that, I thought it was a really good. A really good scene because, like, different from the game, you're kind of like, you're already the character, so some stuff it just is there. And so, like, seeing his hesitation, and it's like, yeah, I don't trust her. I mean, the amount of times he's pointed the gun at her, I'm like, wow, you guys are really leaning into, like, this is very realistic. He's like, don't sit down, I didn't tell you to move, don't do that. And yeah, I thought the mention of the spores, the lighting, I didn't realize that until you said it, but like, that's true. Anytime she's speaking, like, the light is definitely on her. But and that I think, yeah, the hotel is actually where I died in the game. This is where I gave up.
Okay.
That was, yeah,
a little early, Josh.
I had no idea it was so early. I actually wanted, one of my friends had a download code for like the remastered version. So I was like, oh, I'll play this. I was like, oh, this is super interesting. And they get in there, and like, because they're responding to, I know we're like a little bit ahead, because they're responding to like sound, it's like, okay, you can't shoot them. You got to use the knife. You got to like throw stuff to redirect them. But it's so many of them. I was like, nobody can win this. So I'm gonna go play Smash Brothers. That's a little easier.
I know that's right.
But no, this is, I love what everyone is bringing just to the scene. Like, everyone feels very serious, and even with the bickering, it feels. I don't want to call out any major studios, but sometimes people can use comedy to kill the seriousness of a moment. And for them, I'm like, this feels like a 14-year-old girl. Like, she's not understanding yet. And so we have her sacrifice, and so it's like, yeah, you're going to see some bodies drop throughout the series, and then you're going to understand why he is so serious. So to me, I was like, this is this is accurate. Like this is good.
Mhm.
Facts.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
the
and
angst
I
between them is
go ahead,
good.
Deandra.
Ryan, no, that's all. I like their angst so far.
Same.
Oh, but yeah, I was just gonna say I love Pedro Pascal in this, and he's bringing a little bit of that protector that he brought from Mandalorian, and I think that's one of the reasons he is such a good protector. He's always gonna question everything, like nothing gets past him. He's gonna like hammer that idea into like, okay, so why did you survive? I see healing on your arm, but still, I'm not buying it. Okay, you sleeping, you waking up. Okay, give me a couple more days. I need to know what else is going down. So, and we know what happened with his daughter as well. That's still he's obviously gonna carry that for a while. So yeah, I just love him in that protector role. He plays it so well, and you don't get tired of watching it.
Mhm. Listening to them, how they engage, even though he and Tess are on the same side of the fence, Tess still seems more willing to share a little bit more information and equip Ellie with
Mhm.
information. Maybe it's like a mothering and instinctual thing, but in his protection, it almost could be a little crippling because they're not giving her enough information. If she's
Mm.
rolling
Yeah,
with you,
for
that's
sure.
like dead weight. If you don't tell her something, you give her something to
Yeah.
go on just to feed, because she is a child. And children are going to draw their own conclusions and they're not going to take it very seriously. And oh, it's fine. I'm just going to wander over here. We're still within a 5 feet of each other. It's okay.
Yeah.
But it's almost crippling. The protection is almost too tight, and it's making them vulnerable because they want to share with her, but they weren't sure they could trust her. But I mean, who really trusts a 14-year-old with any?
Yeah. Yeah. And he definitely
Yeah.
talks to her like a parent. Like the distinction he makes when like he's like, we're going to be silent, not quiet, silent. I'm like,
Silence.
that's something you say
Silent,
to
yeah.
kids. That's big
Mhm.
parent like teacher mode. Like there's a difference.
Wow,
Mhm.
that's a good catch. Yeah, yeah. Very, very fatherly. I mean, I just love seeing Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey in these roles. They're such great performers and they have such great chemistry. So just seeing them interact, even at this level, at this stage in
Yeah.
their relationship is absolutely compelling to watch. So we move on to them sort of kind of going through the motions here as they're trying to get to the next building, but they move along to a body of water, and Ellie stops and she says that she can't swim, which is it's truth. In the game she cannot swim, and Joel says, seriously? Which I thought that was another funny sort of kind of comical moment. Doesn't feel
Yeah.
forced. And then he jumps up in the water and we realize that it's only knee deep. So she kind of feels a little, less than when he does that. And as I stated before, in the game, Ellie can't swim. Joel actually has to give, he, I think, has like these wooden rafts that he sort of manages to get throughout the game and always pushes her onto those whenever they have to traverse through water. So I don't know how he manages to find those rafts, but
Right.
somehow Joel is able to find some sort of wood, some sort of floating material for Ellie throughout the game whenever there is water. So then Tess goes up to check on something, giving Ellie and Joel some time to bond. And I love that moment. I say it was some time to bond, but it's some time to be alone, really. It's a moment for them to have that bonding moment. And Ellie probes Joel about his history and he refuses to answer. And then she goes on to ask about the lifespan of the infected. And I just kind of want to stop here to get your thoughts about the conversation that goes on between Ellie and Joel in this scene where we just see the two of them together alone, which is character development. Ryan knows that's one of my favorite terms
There you go,
whenever
character development. Yep.
when we do our breakdowns. So that this is kind of the seed that starts to plant between the relationship that's going to unfold between these two.
Well, what I thought was interesting is he assumes that she's kind of dumb. It's clear that he's not been around any young people, and he's saying the most basic of things, and her little sassy mouth is hilarious. I'd slap the hell out of her. But she's like, look, I went to school, goddammit. We had books and stuff. I can read. I can read. I've read about hotels and all these things. So it's making me wonder, when's the last time you saw some children like, I never think about you know, they're creating this society, and this is probably the only child we're going to see. And what was her life up to the point where things got bombed? She might be from a family of privilege because she's smart. She's smart. She knows a lot of things. And she, even the type of questioning she does, says, I've been experienced. I haven't just been as sheltered as you probably think I am. Maybe
Yeah.
because she has this healing property, maybe he attributes it to some type of privilege or wherever she came from, because they don't know nothing about each other. So just the way he talks to her is so, I don't know if condescending is the right term, because he is talking to a child, and you can't really condescend to a child when you're in a place of authority. So just the
Mm.
conversations and him starting to pick up on, you know, this kid is smart. You know, maybe there's more to her than the fact that her scabs are bomb. You know.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, and definitely, I think a lot of to what you're saying. I think a lot of the conversation actually ties into the first episode when she was like, you know, when they reveal that she was raised in the military facility, and so
Mm.
she's obviously like no warrior, no killer. 'Cause she's like, oh, what is it like to kill someone? So that's not her thing, but it's like, oh, she has like a tactical mind. Even when she tricks him in the first episode, it's like, yeah, wake up before you go. He's like, oh snap. And she's like, oh, so 80s music, danger. Got it. Oh, crap. I'm like, okay. So you, like you said, like he treats her like she's dumb, but she's not dumb. She's got like selective knowledge, which I feel, you know, obviously I was talking to my friends the other day. The gamer community has been relatively burned with like adaptations. Most of them haven't been great.
Yeah.
Castlevania stands out, obviously, but most of them have not been wonderful. And
Yeah.
so to have this element, and really is for like, oh man, this might be the oldest thing I say on this episode. But for those of us who are not the TikTok generation, dealing with the TikTok generation, it's like, y'all don't know nothing about nothing. However, they do know certain things because like they learned it on TikTok. So it's like they have like these random pockets of deep functional knowledge that just don't apply anywhere else. I'm like, that's a really interesting way, and possibly because I'm a teacher, so I'm always like seeing things from that lens. But I did appreciate the way he sasses her. I thought you went to school. Like, why are you asking me a question? You came at me real hard. And then with the fact you go to school, and then she's like, well, what about that? He's like, I thought you went to school. I'm a firm believer. You got to sass kids. They're not here for your well being. They are not trying to contribute positively to your emotional health. They sass you. Got to sass them right on back. And then they fell to the ground. I'm like, there it is, proof of concept.
I know that's right. Ryan.
Yeah, I like these. Yeah, I like the sass. I think these two are gonna be like a combination to like a force to be reckoned with. What they once they kind of understand each other, because they both challenge each other constantly. And I remember seeing, I think Craig Mazin, the showrunner, kind of brought it up a little bit, like talking about the ending of like the first episode, where he points out the fact that, Ellie, she seemed to like somebody protecting her, taking out those guards. Like she wasn't as thrown back, as his daughter when he killed somebody. She was kind of there like, all right, okay, I have somebody there, like the look on her face, kind of protecting her. So I think it's gonna be interesting the way these two kind of play off each other and their past, and like you said, the military background, and just how resourceful both of them have become. So I think it's going to get real interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It is. So they look overhead in an abandoned building that they're in, and they see hundreds of infected on the ground. They're everywhere. And Tess explains to Ellie that the cordyceps fungi grows from underground, and that even though Ellie is immune, it's not going to stop her from being torn apart. They walk into another dilapidated building. I think that's the museum at this point. And Ellie sees a body that doesn't look like it was killed by infected. And they walk away to investigate who's inside. The scene is super tense, and the slightest noise can alert any of the clickers to attack them. They come to close contact with them, and they manage to defeat them all. But Ellie does get a scratch from one of them, to which she says, well, if it's going to happen to one of us, better off to be me. So just want to stop there and get your thoughts about that part of the scenes. I kind of went through it really quick, but
I think I want to start watching with my earphones on. since they're making such a thing about the sounds and you have to be quiet. So, I watched it like everybody else does, just looking at it. But now I'm wondering if we listen closely, there might be some more creepiness because the sounds they already put in, like all that
Mhm.
stuff, it's already scary. So just maybe even the layers of sounds of things that they hear. And are the people are their sense of hearing, obviously they can hear well because they can't see, but it's that much more heightened because he's even telling her not to don't pant or anything. Like the intelligence of their hearing is crazy. Or and then one time for the scenery, that scene where they're standing over and they're looking at all the bodies laid out, even though we're not zoomed in, the way it's crafted, that is some frightening looking. You just turn the corner, then boom, it's just hundreds of bodies
Yeah.
on the ground. Now that probably speaks to her military background, wherever she was with her family. She's probably seen hella bodies because it didn't phase her not one bit. But just me looking at the scene, I kind of shrunk back. Like I don't know how I would act if it's just bodies everywhere.
Yeah, and yes, you're absolutely right, Giandra, that their sense of hearing is heightened because of the fact that they can't see. And I think that there's levels to them being zombies. I forgot what they're called. They're like called different things at different levels based on the age of how long they've been infected. I
Mm.
forgot what the big one is called. It starts with a B. If anybody that's watching us, if you want to chat us and let us know. But yeah, they're like really, really big. And then some of them tend to stick together. And like there's these different mutations and forms of the zombies over time, depending on how long they've been infected. Some have been infected for weeks, some have been infected for like 20 years or more. So yeah, it's pretty wild. But yeah,
My
go on.
face.
No thanks. Yeah, no, it's definitely a gnarly situation. And I mean, I appreciate that at least so far we're only 2 episodes in, but a lot
Yeah.
of this is it's tying back to the cold open in the first episode where he's like just talking about the evolution and the fact that we got here so quick. I was like, oh, like we're not wasting time. I appreciate that. Like, let's go into it. But it was the noise because I was watching. I was like, when did I stop playing this game? And then I heard that. I was like, oh, it was this. It was
Yeah.
this right here.
Those
This right here. 'Cause,
that
yeah,
noise is
yeah,
creepy.
yeah. Because like you go in, you've been shooting so many people by that point in the game. It's like pop, 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 and then they swarm you and you die. It's like, oh, okay. So then, at least when I was playing the game, it's like you have to like throw bottles across the room to redirect them, so you can sneak up on one and use
Oh
your
yeah, the Molotov cocktails. Yeah.
yeah, and then use the knife to like kill them like quietly and just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And so even that in my head, I'm like, use the knife, fool, use the knife. But the character.
That was something that I don't know why they're not doing that more on the show, is because in the game, Joel and Ellie, they do use a lot of hand-to-hand combat. So
Yeah.
that way you can save up on your ammo, because ammo is like precious.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting that because we saw that scene where he runs out of ammo in his small handgun, and luckily he has a larger handgun where he was able to take out the other clicker. But yeah, it's like, okay, you guys gotta start doing that.
Right, yeah. And I was like, we just set it up where she's like knife tossing him. So I'm like, okay, maybe the third episode. But but even from a writing standpoint, like I can appreciate that. It's like, okay, like the characters are learning, like, oh snap, we should probably preserve bullets. Oh, they're not they don't go down so easy. We're trying to kill them quietly. Okay, so we should probably use knives, which means we got to collect bigger knives and the other types of blunt weapons on the way. So yeah, that whole thing was really it was as terrifying as it was in the game. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, this is giving me flashbacks. I remember exactly where I was.
Yeah, I think they're called bloaters or something like that.
Bloaters,
Yes.
yes.
How
Yes.
big they are and everything like that. Those things are freaky. Like I feel bad for the prosthetic department when we get to those kind of episodes if they bring that in, but it's just the whole thing, like just seeing, like Jandra was saying, just seeing all the bodies, the infected bodies on the ground, and the way they kind of move together as like they're one organism. All of it is just so freaky. Like the way they work the fear into this show is just amazing to me, and the way they create it and the clicking sound, like you just hear it, your whole body is just tensing up for them because you're like, go, 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 run, get out of there, but then they can't make any noise. So it's insane. It's crazy the tension that it's bringing. So I don't know. It's like a bad episode of Jurassic Park or something. Like the worst part of Jurassic Park. It's like you can't go anywhere. Like the creatures is like right there. You like nothing is gonna like. But you at least in Jurassic Park you can run. You can run and hide somewhere. Like you have to be very slick and creepy. And you can't run out of ammo. It's insane. So I'm loving it. I can't believe it was only a 57-minute episode.
Why are clicking sounds so scary? You think of like aliens, and
and
like
so,
even
like,
the
repetitive
from Land of the Lost back in the day, and anything.
Yeah.
It's just ooh.
It's like the right pitch too. It's not like too loud. It's just like right there to be annoying enough.
And then what's that horror movie? What's the horror movie with the girl with the long black hair that Sarah Michelle Gellar was in? Was it all? What's that?
Was it The Ring, the one where she comes out the well?
Not The Ring, but the other one that was in the same vein as The Ring. Sarah Michelle Gellar was in it. Bill Pullman. Gosh, I can't think of it. But it had that weird noise. It's similar to the clicking sound.
I don't know, but it's all creepy. That pitch.
It's creepy either way. I'm not even going to try to mock the sound.
I have a phobia of that because of that. I sleep with like rain sounds and ambient. I don't like slight sounds when I'm sleeping. It freaks me out.
Yeah, it was creepy. It was creepy. The grunge. That's what I'm thinking of.
Good call. Good pick.
Yeah. So as they exit the building, Joel tries to tape up Tess's foot, and Tess is a little bit cold and distant. And when he asks about the kid, it's funny. Joel refers to Ellie as the kid throughout, this episode. She fires back and she says, "Can't you accept a win for once?" And Joel has kind of like this confused look on his face. Joel and Ellie then look over the city, and he says to Ellie, "Is it everything that you hoped for?" To which she says, "The jury is still out, but man, you can't deny that fear." And then Joel looks down at his watch, which there was like a little tear at the side of my eye when he looked down at his watch, because him looking down at his watch obviously is reminiscent of the watch that Sarah gave him as a birthday gift that we saw in episode 1. Mm-hmm. And I want to just stop there. I want to get your thoughts on this moment because there's a bit of a shift happening with Joel in this scene.
Time is running out. That's what he's trying to tell us. Time is running out for their trio. And
that's interesting. Okay. I never thought about it that way. Time is running out for their trio.
It's running out. And
I looked at it differently. I looked at it as him thinking about his daughter, but okay.
He is starting to seeing Tess be vulnerable because Tess hasn't been vulnerable to this point. She's been a badass. She's shooting up stuff. She's leading missions. She's got her own. She don't really need, it's always better to travel in a pack. But Tess got it. If she's out in the wild, she's going to be cool. And it's also with that vulnerability of her being injured, you can almost see the shift kind of happen with Joel, like, ooh, I might have to take care of this child by myself. I don't want to, because if her ankle's weak, just them going across that board was a thing. So if that was an issue, how are they going to get through this city that's already buildings toppled over, all that stuff all over the ground, things to trip over? When they were, I think that's a hit. Let me not say what I was about to say, but just all of those things that are out there. An ankle is just as bad as having a toothache, I guess, in their situation. There's no medicine, there's no aspirin, there's no resources, there's no nothing. And so he's going to have to soften up his exterior, not only to kind of comfort Tess, I guess, with her vulnerability, but the real fact that he's going to have to quarterback this if something happens. But they time running out.
Yeah, definitely. And on that, I think from the storytelling standpoint, like you're saying, like he's starting to understand, like, oh, something's about to happen. And I like in particular when when show creators treat the individual episodes like a film. Because I'm like, this is the bad guys close in beat, where he's like, nothing's happened quite yet. And obviously we're about to get into the next scene, which is all is lost. But like it's like that, just the sense of doom. I can't quite prove it, but something's about to go down. And obviously he's been having these moments, even from, again, like the first episode when they initially smuggle and he sees the guy and he flashes back to his daughter. And so he, like, it's interesting seeing him do Mandalorian with facial expressions.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that's like this tone. I know this tone. I know the measured body movements. Like I know all this. Seeing, like, being able to see his eyes and just like the despair and just like, oh snap, like this is really not going well, and it already started off bad. I'm just like, oh, like Pedro, you out here like acting, like, oh,
isn't that such a testament to how good of an actor he is, that he can act so well that behind a mask we know what he's feeling and what he's emoting. And then obviously we see these expressions on his face in this show.
So I was with it.
Anyway, Ryan.
Yeah, this whole scene made me nervous because like John just said, something's happening. You can tell something's going down because he's starting to realize a lot of stuff that he was ignoring before, and all the close call scenes they've made it through. Like the clicker's like right here, and somehow they figured out like everything that's like that should be like a dead end for them, that should be a no-go. They made it through so far. So I think everything is starting to, like, he's starting to add it up. He's starting to put it together. Like, okay, this might be my unit for right now. No, I'm gonna have to take this position differently. Hopefully they get him some backup ammo if he's not gonna go from the back, and just take some of them out. So yeah, we in the thick of it now. This like journey, it's not gonna be as easy as he thought. So it's getting ready to get interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Giandra. Yes.
Is he trembling? There's this where he's loading the gun. Have we got to that yet, or is that after?
I think he has like a fracture on his hand a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah. When I watched it back, I'm like, wait a minute, I don't remember that before, but he's a little,
Yeah.
Fear. His attention to detail as an actor is just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The nuance of all his movements. I'm just like, wow.
Also, too, I wanted to point out the production design is amazing too. Like it kind of fits into, like, if you see some of the gameplay, it fits it, like the way the building is tilted and her looking out over, like it fits into that. Like I thought that was amazing too.
Yeah, they're wide shots where you can see just like the devastated land. I'm like, this is, well, it's obviously horrific, but beautiful at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. It's a beautiful disaster. I mean, it just goes to show that the creators of this show have so much respect for the game and so much respect for the source material. And it's sad that other previous franchises have decided to not go down that path.
Resident Evil. Oh, excuse me.
Halo.
Allergies, y'all.
So yeah, it's a shame. So hopefully, I mean, obviously this show has become very successful and we're only 2 episodes in, and other game franchises, if they see what The Last of Us is doing and has done, they're going to be like, yeah, we need to just respect the source material and, have maybe even some of the same actors that are in the game, like Merle Dandridge, who's Marlene. And I think we're going to have some other folks in other episodes that are voice actors. So yeah, I think it's great that they just really respect the source material. So absolutely. So our last scene, which things do get interesting here. Ellie, Joel, and Tess, they enter the Capitol building and they discover the Fireflies they were supposed to connect with are all dead. Joel now sees this as a lost cause, and he's like, let's just head back. ain't nothing going on at this point. Tess says no, and that this is her last stop. And Ellie realizes, or excuse me, yeah, this is her last stop. And Ellie realizes that she's infected. And this actually plays the same exact way in the game, word for word. Tess says those same words, and Ellie says, wow, she's infected. Tess opens her shirt to reveal an infected wound on her neck, and an infected man wakes up. Joel shoots him in the head, and this alerts a swarm of infected people to storm the Capitol building where they're inside.
Mm-hmm.
And like the G that she is, Tess, she spills gasoline and grenades everywhere to make certain that the infected don't follow them. Meanwhile, poor Joel has this like really doomed look on it. He looks so sad. Pedro Pascal's expressions in this moment, just you just want to hug the guy because he looks so sad. He has this doom look on his face, knowing what's about to happen. And Joel forces Ellie out of the building. Ellie doesn't want to leave Tess behind, but he has to leave her behind. And Tess is left alone and blows up the building, killing all of the infected and saving Joel and Ellie in the process. In the game, it's a little slightly different, but same context behind Tess being the sacrificial lamb. Tess is actually shot by soldiers shortly after she managed to kill a couple of soldiers on her own. But Joel and Ellie still escape, and Tess ultimately saves them. So that's how the episode ends. It ends with the building getting blown up by Tess, and she saves their lives. And there's a weird moment, which we discussed before we started the recording, where where Tess is like, I don't know, like sucking face with one of the zombies. So that was kind of a weird moment, but let's talk about that. We'll go to Giandra first, and what's your thoughts about how this whole thing played out?
Even in catastrophe, cishet men are going to try to kiss you without your permission.
What is that all about?
Like,
they're vampires now or something?
And she's just catatonic. But to liken it back to what she was telling about when they were telling her about the city and the contra, how do you say it? The contracept, cordyceps.
Yeah.
When you are attached to it, it starts to affect your mind, I think she said.
Yeah, it affects the brain.
You away. So maybe that's what made her catatonic. Maybe it's like spreading, and she had just enough wherewithal to keep her humanity, but she was getting, locked into the clique and connecting with them, and they were pulling her in, and maybe that's why she couldn't run. And that's frightening. It's almost like you can see the light going out in her eyes because she knew it was coming, but she had just enough left to set it off like Angela Bassett.
Right.
And waiting to exhale, by the way, reference.
Light it up.
Angela and those immaculate shoulders.
But yeah, no, it was that was some drama. A kiss can spark a lot of drama. In this case, it blew up the Capitol building.
It did.
That's hilarious. This whole scene was like super interesting. I liked at least how I interpreted it was also a partial callback to when she had been explaining to Ellie about like the way the network like communicates, because after like when the body woke up and then like they shot it's like they had the tendrils come out and then they cut to the scene of everyone waking up. So I was like, oh, like the signal was sent, because she had said that like they know where you are at this particular moment. So I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And then I was like, I have no idea how they're gonna get in this, because obviously I abandoned the game before this part, so I had no idea what was coming. And the kiss part was a little weird. It was like this hasn't happened like with anyone else. I mean, granted, we haven't seen that many people be like taken or turned, but I'm like, this is a little odd, I'm gonna say. But but the rest of it was like dope. And like even like what you're saying, like watching his face as he was like, again, sticking with the beats, like now we're in Dark Night of the Soul. His worst nightmare is happening. She's dying and he's got to be with his kid he doesn't want to be with one-on-one, going to do this thing he really doesn't want to do. I just want to go find my brother. Like that's still in the back of his mind. I went to rescue my brother, who, by the way, y'all low-key turned against me. Like there's a whole set of unresolved, and seeing him just like figure it all out in that moment, and also like the pressure of it, like, which is, I feel like, I guess I'm assuming it happens with every pandemic. I've only lived through one, but when you don't have the luxury of time to decide how you feel about a thing before you got to make a critical decision, like when that happened in March 2020, it's like, oh, by the way, no one's coming back to work. You can't go to the grocery store. You got to wear a mask. Lockdown. Wait, what? Huh? What? What about my feelings? We don't care about your feelings. That does not matter right now. And yeah, and having him go through all of that in like the space of 10 seconds and just be like, dang. And then running out, and you know, it's his worst nightmare. And then, you know, she keeps doing it. I'm like, wow. A little bit. I'm on a My Hero Academia binge right now, simultaneously.
Okay.
So I also saw like a little bit of Midoriya in her action, like early, like first season Midoriya, where he's like, I'll blow my whole arm apart just to boop and release like One for All. And I was like, okay, yeah, she's here, she's giving it all. Like, I'll just stand here and I'll just keep doing it, and eventually it'll go. And then, yeah, went out like a freaking G.
Thank you, Mom Flower Gem, for joining us, and we also appreciate you joining us on the chat. She said, I really appreciate your insight on these shows, and you're welcome. I also want to add, before you jump in, Ryan, too, there was a point where Tess said to Joel, you know, I never force you to feel anything about me. Do you remember that part?
Yeah, never asked you to feel what I feel. Yeah,
to feel what I feel. And that really struck me, because I'm like, wow, because, you know, they're in a relationship, I believe. So that was just an interesting moment where Tess kind of opens up about sort of the reality of how Joel is as a partner. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up.
That was good. I mean, I think that's a testament of like, in an age where everyone likes to claim like it's impossible to do these things. It's like, well, if the writing is tight, you can accomplish miracles. Because even in the first episode, their relationship was barely shown, but she talks him off a ledge in such a way that you know they have a very intimate relationship. Just the way she's like, you can't go after these guys. Like, we can get the battery, but I need you to take a breath, because if you go out there, they're gonna kill you and he's gonna run. So we can do what you want to do, but I need you to take them. And just that whole thing is like, oh, they're very close. And that's the only thing we see until the point, like you said right now, where she's I never asked you to feel how I felt. I was like, geez.
And I feel like too that he probably never really opened up to Tess, because even in the game, there's a part where she says, you don't really know me. Tess says that to Joel. So it's like, Joel probably never was open with his feelings, and never, you know, he still kept that wall. Yeah. Even in having a relationship with her, and somebody's going to break that wall. So Ryan, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, and I think too, I like them being smugglers too, like that kind of playing into a relationship. I guess you have to be that hardcore, like, this is a job that I have to get done. I need to be able to trust you. So we have a little bit of emotion, but you got to keep it strict into the book, because we need to survive. We got to do what we got to do. We got to keep pushing. Like, one person can't be weaker than the other person. So, you know, that kind of takes out, you know, the love a little bit, because, you know, how you going to move through these things? You know, if she's like, you're like, oh, well, let's have a little moment over here. No, like, the clicker's around the corner. Like, you got to keep moving. So I think them like pushing these certain products that they do kind of informs on that relationship a little bit too. But, and then, you know, to be honest, I just wanted them to get Tess like a matchbook or something. Like, I was like, why is the lighter not working? I was like before the kiss happened, they were just like going out the door, and I was like, this was the whole plan, was for her to light them up. Like, what is she doing right now? And I was like, and then they finally got that last wick at the end. Yeah, they were killing me. They were killing me in this scene. I was like, so is the lighter not gonna work? Like, what's the problem here? So yeah, it was crazy.
She had that lighter that the little boy had in Us. That thing was not working.
I was
like, take the whole time for the lighter to light.
Yeah, I thought she was gonna like shoot her or something, because they already talked about like gunpowder. I was like, oh, okay. And she was just like, I'm like, come on.
Yeah, that was stressing me out. I was like, come on now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Maybe the
crazy,
kiss
yeah.
wasn't that bad, you know. Joel hadn't been just there. They've been on the run. Maybe it's like, oh well, if I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna do it all.
This the last kiss.
Oh
Mhm.
my god.
Look
Oh,
like
man.
calamari coming up out of the
Oh man. Well, that wraps up episode 2. Episode 3 next week. I didn't watch the trailer, but I do know a little bit about episode 3. I believe we're going to be introduced to a new character.
Ooh.
I think the trailer shows it. We're going to be introduced to Bill, and for fans of the game, Bill is a very important character to the story. He's a resource to both Joel and Ellie, and as someone who's seen it, Giandra, I don't know, did you see the episodes? You saw it. It's my favorite episode of the whole entire
season. It's good. Each episode, it just gets better and
it gets better and better. But out of all the episodes, 3 is the best one. So we'll come back next week. We'll talk about it. And we had a lot of folks on the stream tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening to our recap. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Would love to see you guys next week. And feel free to engage with us if you have questions, if you have comments. We're happy to throw up your comments on the screen. And we'll be back same time, same channel. And thank you so much, Giandra, Josh, Ryan. It was lovely talking to you guys.
Yay.
Yeah.
Such a pleasure.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
Such a pleasure. Yeah. I appreciate you. All right. Well, I'll end this stream and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.